Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker ended a 42-year saga. And although we know this doesn't mean the end of the Star Wars franchise, the film has been marketed as a definitive resolution. But tying up 4 decades of loose ends is no easy task, and so naturally, the last third of the movie was a little bit confusing. So let's work through this all together. In the final scene, Rey and BB-8 return to Luke's home planet, Tatooine, to bury his and Leia's lightsabers, and along with them, the Skywalker era. But then when she's asked what her name is, Rey looks knowingly at the ghosts of Luke and Leia and replies James Bond style, Rey Skywalker. Is she saying, Luke, you are my father? Not really. Her real father is exactly who the last movie said he was, a nobody. But her father's father is Emperor Palpatine. So Luke isn't actually her father, but he is her spiritual forefather in a way. She's taking on the name of her chosen family, the Jedi. But she's also taking the Force in a new direction because, as we also see in this scene, she's got a yellow lightsaber. We've seen this color of lightsaber once before in the Star Wars universe. In the Clone Wars, they're wielded by the Sentinels. But presumably Rey's saber isn't meant to be a reference to them. It seems to represent the Force being balanced or at least refreshed or something. As the only person left who's able to use the Force, or so we're led to believe, Rey had the pick of any color, and her decision to go yellow is probably meant as a disavowal of the past. She wants to move on from the simplistic black and white, or I guess blue and red, of the Star Wars past. She doesn't represent a council, a republic, an order, or a resistance. She simply represents herself. In keeping with this, her new yellow lightsaber isn't made from the high-tech brushed metal of lightsabers past. It's a repurposed version of the wooden staff she used before upgrading to the iconic plasma blade. So it's at once a tribute to her humble beginnings, but also to all those across the galaxy who were born into similar circumstances. And then there are the resurrections. To even appear in this movie and reveal himself as the true architect of this whole trilogy, Palpatine had to be resurrected. After Kylo breaks good, him and Rey go toe-to-toe with her grandpa, who flings Kylo off of a cliff. And then Rey, using the last of her energy, reverses Palpatine's lightning right back at him, which proves too much for Palpatine, but also Rey. But then it turns out that Kylo's not dead, as he climbs back up and uses the last of his energy to revive Rey, after which he is gone for good. Also, for most of the movie, everyone thinks that Chewbacca bit the dust in an exploding ship, but it turns out he was actually in a different but similar looking ship that didn't explode. There are also tons of Force ghosts here. Luke, Leia, and kinda Han return from the other side to dispense wisdom and even at one point freeze Kylo for a second so that Rey can skewer him with a lightsaber. But of course she resurrects him, patching his wound. So just to recap who's alive and who isn't at the end of the movie, Rey and Chewbacca are alive. Palpatine, Luke, Leia, and Kylo are not. Got it? But what about that love triangle? In a nod to the originals minus the sibling thing, both Poe and Finn are obviously infatuated with Rey. This has been going on since The Force Awakens, and with the trilogy coming to an end, everyone thought that the Rise of Skywalker would resolve it. But even after some posturing between Finn and Poe that seems to be about Rey, it never really comes up again. And at the end, when everyone is reunited, Rey hugs Finn and Poe at the same time, which will only add fuel to the fanfiction fire. Rian Johnson, who directed The Last Jedi and the amazing recent murder mystery Knives Out, is already working on the 4th Star Wars trilogy. Although it could just be a spin-off or a prequel, could The Rise of Skywalker be setting up an expansive Star Wars cinematic universe? Most definitely. We leave Rey just as her character is coming into herself and becoming really interesting. Right after she leaves the blue and red binary behind for the morally ambiguous yellow. Finn feels relatively unexplored, and if you've seen Attack the Block, you'll know that John Boyega is more than capable of carrying his own film. And he'd be a great team with Janna, who's also a reformed stormtrooper. We also get a quick introduction to Zori Bliss, an old flame of Poe's, who would be incredible in her own spin-off or as a Bonnie and Clyde style team with her ex. What are your thoughts? Did this movie really end anything? Or is this just the start of an infinite Star Wars future? Let us know in the comments, and of course, subscribe to Screen Rant for more.